Thank you. Roll call, please.
Hillary? Here. Jim?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
Tammy? Here. Tony?
Here.
Lori?
Thank you. Number 3 on the agenda is public comment on agenda item. If you don't have an agenda, it should be back here next agenda. If you have any comment on an agenda item? If none, we'll close the public comment and move to number 4, which is the approval minutes for the June 10th regular board meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Support.
It's been moved by trustee Loaches, supported by trustee Frank to approve the minutes from the June 10th regular board meeting. Any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 5 is the treasurer's report. Tammy?
So you're gonna see that, I've changed the layout of this, because now we do have, Michigan class. So you're gonna see our normal funds that we have at Community Shore, like your general fund, your fire operating, your sewer, and then I've got the, Michigan class on here. I just wanna point out, we made $1,134.53 in interest in 1 month from Michigan class. Fire, we made $162.09, which used to never make anything. And sewer, we made $742.90. And then with water, we made $162.09. At the bottom, something different too, the $2,044,226, that's from all the accounts on this sheet. And then you also have the sheet with our CDs, and then our complete total is listed on the bottom, the $2,879,679. And I did just today, because of the holiday weekend, get in the interest that we made on, the CDs, which is amazing. We made, 2,100, 1,445, 338, 341, 814, 861. So getting them up closer to anywhere between 2.5 and 3%, we're doing really good making some money in that Michigan class.
Entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Moved. Support.
It's been moved by trustee Heiner, supported by trustee Loaches to approve the treasurer's report as presented. Any questions, corrections, or comments? Roll call, please.
Mike?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Tammy? Yes. Lori? Yes. Tony?
Yes, motion carries. Number 6 on the agenda is to pay the bills.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Been moved by trustee Frank, supported by trustee Loaches to approve the bills as presented. Are there any questions, corrections, or comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Hillary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Lori? Yes.
Motion carries, thank you. Next on the agenda is the BSNA, talking about bills, the BSNA assessing.net upgrade. We currently, excuse me, have this, it's called Pervasive, and we need to upgrade to .net. We just upgraded the BSNA software, last year, I think it was, through the building department, but this upgrade will, help with the different assessments we have, whether it be for the sewer one, or whether it be for a special assessment for a lake with weed control. But this is gonna be able to help us with our accounting and our budget next year. The cost on this is, to have them do the upgrade, is $3,565. And then we'll have a yearly, renewal period, is in the third quarter, is $710 for this. This is needed so that, we can keep better, accurate accounts in our budget and in our treasury department, and with the clerk's department as well. With the purchasing policy, I can approve up to $1,000 without board approval, so we purchase this, which is recommended not only by our auditor, but everyone in this office that uses it. It is a recommendation I bring to the board for this upgrade. There is an option on here, to have them come and train us, and I believe that was $1,100 or something, but, we're gonna be fine with the training in-house. We've got people we don't necessarily need the training for it.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the assessing.net upgrade and the purchase price of $3,565 with the annual fee of $710.
Support.
It's been moved by Clerk Hayes, supported by Trustee Frank to approve the purchasing of ESNA assessing.net upgrade from the pervasive at $3,565 with an annual renewal rate of $710 a year. Any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none, we'll need a roll call vote, please.
Lori, yes. Hillary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes. Motion carries, thank you. The fire chief is not here tonight, so next on the agenda is the fire department report. He's been going, I think, for the Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs Conference. So the report I have for you is with respect to June. Responses, the Dalton Township Fire Department responded to 87 requests for service with an average response time of 6 minutes and 4 seconds. This included several mutual and auto aid requests to neighboring departments. On a record pace of calls for service. There were 167 calls ahead of last year. We did not hit these numbers until September of 2018. We're not sure, I talked to the chief about this, we're not sure what's causing the increase in calls. But we have had a significant number of calls. I think we're up, again, 167 more than what we were last year at this time. So we're on par to break 1,000 calls this year, which is unheard of in Dalton Township, so. For operations, the push-in ceremony for engine 1222 was well attended, and several citizens asked great questions, not only about the engine, but our overall operation as well. We're humbled by those that were able to attend. It was also placed in social media by the Muskegon Channel and in the media by the White Lake Beacon. We're pleased to announce that probationary firefighters Travis Muhlenberg and Zach Tripp have completed and become certified as licensed as firefighters 1 and 2 and medical first responder MFR. Now they begin the internal probation process. Additionally, high school cadet Joey Rolowitz has graduated high school and is now a probationary employee. He will attend the Fire EMS Academy in the fall. The new Dodge pickup truck has arrived. This will replace the current Chevy Silverado, which was purchased by the Dalton Township Maintenance Department. We will begin the switch over this week with anticipation of an in-service date of August 1st. As always, the staff continues to provide quality care to those that serve. And you'll see that there is a report here that kind of breaks it down, which is typical. You can see every single one. So, that doesn't take any action. Any questions with respect to the fire department report? Not the fire chief, I should give answers on that. Hearing none, we will move on to the planning commission report, which is typically given by Dan Hess. He is excused tonight. He had surgery and been in the hospital, so we're hoping that he'll have a speedy recovery soon. So, the planning commission report, I did put a copy of the minutes that were in here, and then real quick, because I was really anticipating Dan being here, so they're a little further back, but there was a planning commission meeting on May 28th. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at the issues that were heard at that planning commission meeting. One of them was for a zone change from R2 to resource conservation agriculture. The planning commission, as you'll see later on in the agenda, recommended that we adopt that zone change. And one of them was an ordinance amendment 2019-4 with respect to animal signs, industrial district, and special land use and special events. So I don't have any other upgrade from the planning commission. And Dan isn't here. I don't typically do this, but Brian, is there anything you'd like to add from that meeting?
At our last meeting, they approved 36 by 40 storage building in Cormix. And we're working on a new zoning district for residential lakefront properties.
All right. Do you have any questions for Lynn? She's our zoning administrator, so thanks for stepping in and giving that quick report. Any other questions about the planning commission? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 10, which is resolution number 2019-15. This is a resolution to adopt the Water System Policy Board Appendix B and C, rates and charges from the Ready to Serve and the Uniform Rate Ordinance Rules and Regulations. appendix B is with respect to the ready to serve, and the appendix C is the, uniform rate ordinance and different rules in there. So what they've done with this, as the chair of the water policy, we had a rate study done. There's 4 municipalities that are in the water policy, and that's, Dalton Township, Brooklyn Township, Layton, and Muskegon Charter Township. And because they hadn't increased these water ready to serve, they hadn't done any type of increase in the last, I don't know, let's say 15 years. If they would have just picked a very small number, it would have offset the fact that we have such an increase this year, which is 10%. So the ready to serve charge with respect to appendix B, takes the ready to serve charge from 11.25 per metered unit to 14.06 per metered unit. And to increase the commodity rate from 382 to 401 per 100 cubic feet of water, which is 748 gallons. The board, at the Water Policy Board, it did get unanimously passed. Commissioner Mahoney sits on that board with us. It was unanimous that it did pass, and now, because of the way, the master contract reads, we have to approve it at each municipality. So it's already been passed at Layton Township for sure, and I'm just now bringing it to our board tonight. So I would entertain a motion to approve. Now, let me get onto appendix C because it's in the same motion. Appendix C, what they did there is there's a lot of redundancy within appendix C. The redundancy was, it was trying to supersede what the plumbing code said, or it wasn't sufficient to what the plumbing code said. So they went through with the subcommittee and they went through both of these appendixes, and they came back, and these were, again, this was also unanimously approved at the Water Policy Board. Again, and each municipality has capacity, so that we have the uniform rate ordinance. They fixed some of the definitions in there. This has also, we also have a new attorney for the Water Policy Board. Her name is Crystal Morgan, and she was there at all the subcommittee meetings when they went through and made all these recommended changes, so that we're not being more strict than the plumbing code or outdated in the plumbing code. That was one of the changes. Another change that was made in respect to the appendix C was the, we've had a lot of unauthorized use of water. And what I mean by that is, for example, in the business park off of Whitehall Road, those hydrants are shut off over there right now. And the fire departments all know that, because we don't ever use them. So if we don't use them, or somebody goes out there and illegally uses them, and it could be somebody that does hydro seeding, it could be somebody that does concrete, they need some more water, it's real easy to open a fire hydrant and get that water. So we had a lot of water, and I'm not saying that's where it happened. It very well could have happened out there. But once they get cracked open, then you have to pump them down in the fall so that they don't freeze up. So in lieu of that is the DPW, you just shut them off. So in the business park off of Whitehall Road, they are shut off, but they're out there on the road working. So to stifle somebody from trying to steal this, the subcommittee recommended, and it was unanimously approved, that there should be, it's $1,000 fine plus $100 per day for the first offense, $2,500 plus $250 per day for second offender subsequent offenses. We all have to pay for that. When somebody's stealing it, that's making us have to pay more. So the people do have water. So that's why we ended up making that change in there. They did put in a section 5, which tells you who the ownership of these water lines are. It is not us, though they're in our township. It's just like any other infrastructure, right? It's owned by the county, DPW, and they're the ones that go out and fix this if there's a water main break, or pump them down in the fall if need be. But we want to make sure that no municipality, whether it be Dalton or whether it be any other municipality that's part of this master contract, claims ownership for this. That kind of happened a little bit in years past prior to me starting here, and it resulted in some lawsuits because of the ambiguity in this appendix C. So that it was cleaned up. They got some of this redundant language out of there. We did put some language in here, the subcommittee did, that allowed for unmetered usage, and they'll try, like if the fire department's gonna go test all their fire hoses, they typically do that in the business park. With those off, they'll have to find another location, but they wanna make sure that if we're using any of that water, that it one, we have to let them know about it, and you can't use a pipe wrench on them, that's strictly in here right now. We don't want those stripped up, there's an actual tool, it does open them, but a pair of channel locks can probably open and turn them on. So they put that in there. The other, thing that they've added with respect to this appendix C was clarifying who does the collections for those. That's not in, because we don't own it. Dalton Township's not gonna send you a bill, neither is any other municipality, it's in its master contract, the county does that. Now, you can pay them here, and we are the taxing agency for the township, so you can pay your water bill or your sewer bill here, and we have to send that off to the county, but, there's, some language for, I think you've done change with respect to, late fee, they did put some language in there so that, there's discontinuation of service. And these are for people that wanna shut their water off and go to Florida for the winter, for example. The county was spending a ton of money in shutting all these services off for people and then not charging to turn it back on when they got back in the springtime, or whenever they came back. So they've put language in there that's in, you'll find in appendix B, that gives it, it's a base fee, I think it's $50 they put in there to turn it off and winterize it for you. So, with respect to resolution 2019-15, the Water System Policy Board, appendix B and C, the rate charges, rate of surcharge, and uniform rate ordinance and rules and regulations, entertain a motion to approve resolution 2019-15.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Been moved by trustee Heiner, supported by trustee Frank to approve resolution 2019-15. Any questions, comments, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 11 is ordinance 2019-02 to amend the township zoning map for Mr. and Mrs. Reminder, Francis and Kim, who are in Tennessee. They have property on Tyler Road, they went to the planning commission, they had a R2 zoning, and they bought this little farm, I think everyone knows what's at, just after, Central Road, and it's on the, south side of Tyler. But they want to, I think it's 31 acres, and they want to, rezone it to agriculture and do some, light, if you will, farming, and I think across the street from that is all agricultural. This is a recommendation from the planning commission that we do this rezoning. If we have any questions with respect to this, it just makes sense that we do it, because all across on the north side of Tyler is agricultural resource conservation. It was a farm, if you look at those houses that are there, it could be over 100 years old, those buildings, they got building permits, and they're gonna get that all fixed up, and looking forward to welcome to the neighborhood, and the community, so thank you for being here tonight. I'll be here somewhere. There they are. I was looking for you there.
I'll make the motion to change it to agricultural.
Been moved by treasurer, Stevenson and supported by trustee Heiner to approve ordinance 2019-02 to amend the zoning map for Mr. and Mrs. Reminder on Tyler Road from R2 to, resource conservation agriculture. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 12 on the agenda is ordinance 2019-04 to amend the township zoning ordinance, with respect to animal signs, industrial districts, and special events. The planning commission worked on this, they've already had public hearings on both of these issues. I should include that in the previous ordinance, they've already had public hearings on this, on both of these. But the ordinance 2019-04 would be to, change definitions. You'll see the one-line change on the pages in front of you. They took out the language for the AGRC district with respect to up to 4 hens can be kept on a parcel in an area in resource ag or resource conservation, but they got rid of that so that it would be allowed in R1, if such parcel includes occupied dwelling. Section B through G is unchanged. They've defined the special land uses D1 district with respect to gravel and sand mining. They also changed and added a special events venue. This came about because we've had 4 or 5 different places that have this property that they want to do a special event. For example, there's a property on McMillan, they have a really gorgeous piece of property on their part of McMillan over here. And they rent it out to people that wanna get married on their property or graduations, and these barn weddings is something that's really become a big thing, not only in Michigan, but across the whole state. So they wanted to make sure that they were doing it the right way so that there was no liability on their end, and they actually had one here recently and got a temporary special use permit so that they could have a wedding out there. And, you know, the language in here, there's another one too, there's a haunted trail on Katy that happens once a year. This came about because of, the mother of, the owner out at Hidden Creek Farm asked us to, we didn't have one of these, so she came here in like October and asked for one of these, if we had a permit like that. There's, what am I missing? There's gotta be one more I'm missing. Oh, Yard of Palooza is another event that, we never heard of this Yard of Palooza until last year when they came to us, so we're trying to work with them and get them on the up and up as well. So with respect to that, they also changed in this ordinance, seasonal uses. So the zoning administrator may authorize a temporary special use permit for up to one event, lasting up to 30 days per year for seasonal or unusual, non-recurrent temporary uses. So it doesn't have to necessarily go to the planning commission. If it's something that we can handle right here in our office, we certainly will. If it's something a little bigger, or more than 30 days, they would probably have to go to the planning commission with that. The special event, that was added under section 16.52. Regulations and conditions were added in there. There are lots of requirements that you need to get a permit through the road commission, or the Department of Transportation, depending on what road you're on. We need proof of dumpster and garbage containers. If liquor is to be served, we're gonna need some sort of, we're not a liquor control agency, so that happens at the state level, I believe. But we would like to see that so that people aren't, if we gotta know if someone's out drinking, driving, or on a road, make sure they have plenty of off-street parking. And I think that, that is it. The effective date of this will be 10 days following publication should it pass. So, this is a recommendation from the planning commission from the May 28th meeting, and I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2019-04.
I make the motion that we accept ordinance 2019-04.
Support.
It's been moved by trustee Frank, supported by trustee Lochis. Are there any questions, corrections, or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carries. Number 13 is an ordinance, 2019-05, to regulate state licensed medical marijuana facilities. That's why I have our attorney here tonight, so there's a couple of things that, hopefully everyone read their packet. And I'm sure that Attorney Jim Scales will touch on this, but with respect to Public Act 281, 82, and 83 that was passed by the legislation in Lansing, we didn't get a chance to vote on that as residents of the state, but they passed this regulation for Public Act 281, 283. If we don't do anything, I think I said this a long time ago when they passed it, if we don't do anything, as in opt in, we're already opted out. We don't have to take any measures to opt out. With respect to the recreational marijuana, not medical, it's just the opposite. If you don't opt out, you're opted in. In this information, and I'm gonna have Jim speak to this, you should have a copy of from the county clerk's website that tells you in all 4 precincts in Dalton Township. Anybody hear me? All 4 precincts in Dalton Township this passed, and I've got all the numbers here. I've got the total votes for our township. And it was roughly 50% yes and 44% no. I'm sure there's a decimal in there to find an exact number, but it's real close to that. That's probably pretty similar with what the state did statewide with this ballot measure, which is proposal, it was 18-1. So the first proposal we voted on in November, and it passed 57 to 43 in the entire state. So we were right on par with it in all 4 precincts. So I want to make sure that everyone did have an opportunity to see that, and I'd like to ask Jim to touch on where we're going with this and why. Jim?
Thank you. I hope you had a chance to look over the letter that explains this. This is really coming to you at this point because a potential buyer has expressed interest in buying the county's North Industrial Park and also the former Wayside Mobile Home Park that the township actually owns. But one of the conditions of their purchase is that they want to be able to rent it or sell part of it for a facility that produces marijuana. So one of their conditions for buying the property would be that the township ordinance allows a grower, which is just what it sounds like, someone who grows marijuana, processor, which processes marijuana into a usable form, a safety compliance facility, which is test marijuana for safety and, I guess potency, or a secure transporter, which is an outfit that transports marijuana between those different types of users. They are not asking that they be allowed to have a so-called provisioning center or retail outlet within that industrial park. So what we put together really is intended to be fairly limited as a first step, maybe the only step, to allow the growth processing or these testing facilities or transporters in that industrial park. As Tony mentioned, under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Licensing Act, the township has to adopt an ordinance opting in to allow certain types of facilities. It can limit the types of facilities it allows, it can limit the number of facilities, it can limit where those facilities are. And so that is the first ordinance that you have in your packet. That would be the ordinance that would opt in for medical marijuana facilities, for growers, processors, safety compliance facilities, and secure transporters, only in those areas where they are specifically allowed by name in the township zoning ordinance. It would also specifically prohibit provisioning centers. It would have really a fairly abbreviated township licensing process where the township would check to make sure that the person has their state license first and foremost, that they're in an appropriate location, that they have site plan review. There is a application fee of $5,000 payable to the township, and the license is reviewed annually, and that fee has to be paid every year. It's used for monitoring the compliance of the facility with the township's ordinances and regulations. So that would be the first part of a regulation to allow medical marijuana facilities in the township. And the reason they want to have approval to have a medical marijuana facility is that those facilities, in addition to being able to produce marijuana that can only be sold to licensed patients, people who have medical conditions that would be treated by the use of marijuana, those facilities will get first rights to apply for a permanent license from the state to produce marijuana for recreational use. So that's why they want to have, as a condition of buying this property, they want to have the township approve medical marijuana facilities in the township. Now, the second part of this would be again, this first ordinance would be a general township ordinance that can be adopted by the township board. It doesn't need to go through the planning commission, but it really doesn't have any effect without the second part of the structure, which would be having the planning commission look at and adopt what we call a marijuana production overlay district, which would be a special zoning district that would be imposed on top of another zoning district, in this case the industrial district, that would allow marijuana growers, processors, safety compliance facilities, and transporters in that area. And so the second part of this would be to, if you want to move ahead on this, to have the planning commission consider this MPO overlay district. They would then consider the text of it, make a recommendation to the township board whether to adopt it. Possibly at the same time, they may actually identify and place this industrial park in the former Wayside manufactured housing park into that overlay district. And then at that point, the production of marijuana by growers and processors and safety compliance facilities and transporters would be allowed in that industrial park. So those are the two parts of it. Do you have any questions for me?
Jim, could you, touch on the, 425 agreement with respect to the, business park?
Yeah, for some reason, many years ago, when Renaissance zones were first, set up, the township additionally transferred jurisdiction for limited purposes of that industrial park from the township into the city. And frankly, the only, purposes for which it was transferred was so that the city could designate it to be a Renaissance zone. Now, the Renaissance zone, tax breaks expired in 2014, so they really never came into being. It was intended to encourage growth in that industrial park. In addition, the city has the authority to levy city level property taxes within that industrial park, which are higher than the
Income
township's.
tax.
Pardon me?
Income tax, correct?
No, property tax.
Property tax, got it.
However, the city has to share an amount of millage equal to what the township would levy with the township. So if there is growth in that area, the township, gets the property taxes that would recover from that area anyway. In addition, the city has an income tax, and it agreed to share 40% of, the income tax revenues from that property with the township. Other than that, the township did not transfer jurisdiction to the city over zoning or fire protection or utilities or, really anything else. And so it was really just for the purpose of, allowing the city to designate to be a Renaissance zone. We looked at whether there would be any advantage, to the township, to make this process easier, or any other advantage to, agree to transfer zoning jurisdiction to the city over that property. So that the city could facilitate allowing the medical marijuana facilities in there. And honestly, we didn't see any advantage to the township. In fact, it could be a disadvantage to the township if the project doesn't move ahead, where you've already turned over zoning authority to the city. But in terms of making things move more quickly, we just really didn't see any advantage to, increasing the scope of that Act 425 agreement with the city.
Thank you. So does anybody have any questions with respect to this ordinance? I imagine there's a few, and I can at least elaborate on with what I know. This 425 agreement, when I first came across this, it was adopted in 2002. And I'm not sure if that was Halaki as a supervisor then or not, but it's a 50-year 425 agreement where we leased or basically annexed off that property, though it's in Dalton Township, to the city. We're in year 18 of a 50-year lease, and that doesn't expire until 2052. So when I first came across this with my very limited understanding of Act 425, I thought, okay, we have zoning on this. They have somebody that wants to buy the entire business park. Maybe that gives us a negotiating chip so that we can make this 425 agreement, you know, they can shoot for the moon, they're gonna shoot for the moon. I thought maybe we can say, well, we'll have, I'll bring it to the board. If the board approves it, I want this to 425 agreement to go away after 20 years. I doubt they would have bid on it. But if we could have got it from the other end, to come down from a 50-year to a 40-year or 35, I thought with my limited scope of education on a 425 agreement that I'd be setting up Dalton Township long after we were gone. After doing some more research on this 425 agreement, because of the fact that they collect their city income tax out there, and Dalton Township gets 40% of that, I thought, shoot, we need this for 100 years. We can't collect income tax, but the city can on that property. The investor that's looking to buy this property, because of the Superfund site that's out there, everybody remember the Ott story? It's still out there, and there's the DEQ, or actually, they're not DEQ anymore, just so everyone knows, they changed their name to EGLE, which is Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy. It's still the Department of, they'll be out there long after I'm gone. They'll be there for 30, 40 years, cleaning up the water before it gets down into Bear Creek. So there's certain parts of that property that they can't use, and they're wanting to buy the Wayside Trailer Park. If everyone recalls, I think that's one of the reasons that, the reason I think that Wayside Trailer Park went out of business, was because there's roughly 100 pads, I think 98 to be exact. And that's roughly $6,000 just for sewer, not counting water. It's a $600,000 bill for them. So there's still that assessment on that property. If this gets adopted, and there's a lot of things that have to happen, letter of intents and all kinds of things, the planning commission can look at this. this. If this developer does buy it, they will be taking over that $600,000 assessment on the sewer. So that's huge for Dalton Township, and the fact that we have, the 40% of city income taxes. The preliminary plans that we've seen, this isn't going to be just a pole barn that somebody grows marijuana in, and it's not just marijuana. I want everyone to know that this is vertical agricultural technology, the word they use. It includes hemp, it includes, I didn't know this, but I didn't verify it. They told me that Michigan is the #2 state for the retail sales of flowers, so it can be flowers. One of the bigger things that they were interested in is they've already talked to all the local breweries around this area, different counties, and breweries use hops to make their flavor profile in their microbrew. And they all want their own locally sourced hops. Hops is very similar to marijuana, where it has a whole bunch of different flavor profiles, and the timing of how much you put in and when you put it in there. That's just one of the aspects that they're also looking at. The first phase, if this was to all go through, and there's a lot of things that have to get lined up first, but they're talking 1 million square foot of building out there, that they're 3 different buildings. They're also looking at doing their own, they're not gonna buy electricity from consumers, they're gonna have their own power plant out there, which is a cogen. A cogen is, at least preliminary, when we talked about it, was, natural gas, and then the exhaust from that natural gas turn the turbine will heat up water, which creates steam, so that you get a cogen out of it. So that's all yet to be determined. But if we don't opt into the Public Act 281, 283, again, they're gonna be the first people to get the recreational license. Now, I gave you a ton of information I'd like to go over, with respect to recreational. I don't know if anybody caught that, but this last Wednesday, I think it was, or Thursday, the state issued some emergency, rules with respect to recreation. We're not talking about that tonight. I've got some information in here that I could at least, and I gave it to everybody so you can get a chance to read it. But this is, to at least have the industrial park and Wayside be, Wayside to be part of this at some point, but this opt-in for the medical marijuana with no provisioning centers is just for that overlay district that the planning commission will have to go over, and they'll work that out. This is a general law, not a zoning law ordinance. That particular precinct where is precinct 3, and in precinct 3, it passed 60%, proposal 18-1 did, it passed 60% yes, and 38% no. It passed in all 4 precincts. I'd recommend that we entertain at least doing this overlay district for this opting into this particular medical marijuana ordinance. It does not have anything in there with provisioning centers, but the planning commission can certainly look at that. This would be a general law ordinance to at least regulate the state licensed medical marijuana facilities. And I think those rules, based on what I printed off today, are subject to change with respect to the recreation.
I guess I just have a quick question for Jim. In simple terms, basically, I think it looks like part 1 was called part 1 and part 2. We actually need to opt in. The overlay, I don't know exactly how we'd handle that, because it's gonna have to go to the planning commission before it comes back. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah, that public
Okay.
hearing.
That's just so everybody a little clearer on
And then part
At
2
least
is
I'm
where you
clear.
designate the actual place where they can be.
it.
Yeah, so there'll be public hearings on that at the planning commission. It'll be published in the newspaper, which is what we have to do, so, we'll follow all of the requirements in Public Act 185 and 188. There is a severability clause in here that in the event of any provision, this ordinance is held to be invalid, such holding shall not be, affect the validity of enforceability of any of the remaining provisions of this ordinance, so. This is a living, breathing document, right? Everyone knows that an ordinance is, as the populace changes and the requests and demands changes, this can also be amended later on, so.
That's one.
So So with respect to ordinance 2019-05, to regulate the state licensed medical marijuana facilities, I would entertain a motion to adopt this resolution, or ordinance, sorry.
Make that motion.
Been moved by trustee Heiner, supported by trustee Loaches, to approve ordinance 2019-05, which is the regulate state licensed medical marijuana facilities. Any questions, corrections, or comments? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
Tammy, yes, Lori, yes, Tony,
Yes, motion carries. Number 14 on the agenda was the, I guess, step 2, which would be to recommend to the planning commission to consider the marijuana protection overlay district. We have a draft copy that our attorney put together for us, and our planning commission will get copies of this, and there'll be public hearings, that'll be posted. But that would be the next step, is to recommend. So entertain a motion to recommend the planning commission to consider the marijuana production overlay district.
I'll make that motion. Support.
Been moved by trustee Loaches, supported by trustee Heiner, to recommend to the planning commission that they consider the marijuana production overlay district. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the public comment. Please state your name and address for the record, and there is a microphone up here. We'll close public comment, go to board comment.
Wait.
Oh, sorry, we got one at a time.
Wanda Todd, 942 West Michelanda. I have a question about the trailer park being sold. Was there some, when we cleaned that place up, remember we had somebody come in and do a asbestos check and stuff? There was a fee for that, right?
That happened
That was.
like a year before I got here, but I was at the meeting when that happened.
That was, you did.
No, that was Jerry, I was here, and it was a one-to-one matching grant, I think, funds from the county, so I think Dalton Township paid 10,000 and county paid 10,000.
So there's no lien, the township doesn't have any kind of.
No, we have a roughly $600,000 sewer bond in there.
Sewer bill,
Yeah.
but that's not part of it. And can you tell me how many acres the trailer park?
It's 14.5, it's not 15, it's not quite 15.
And is it more, cause I used to live in Wayside, and back in the woods behind it, there's some orchids and stuff that were growing there. I was wondering if there was any protection for them. I think it's gonna mow the whole thing down and use the whole land as part of their buildings and their outbuildings and their growing buildings and their.
I would say if you want any orchids, you might want to go dig them.
I don't think they're dangerous.
Yeah,
Oh, well, but I just,
I know a lot of people have called here since I've started in 2016. Actually, it was, I would say, the spring of 2017, asking about going out and getting pieces of
I thought you were
bushes and shrubs.
on the property.
Right.
well, somebody said that they wanted $1 for their property, but you had to pay the $600,000 in the sewer bill. Now, that's not,
Well, I don't know that the cost of the 14.5 acres, which we don't have any proposal in front of us right now. This board did take action several months ago to go with JOL, as our realtor that the county used, so.
right, so there's no figure on the price of the property.
Not that I'm aware of yet, no. I don't think we're that far along.
I thought it was, somebody had gotten a hold of a realtor and they put a price on it, plus,
I don't think.
no, okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We had property for, like Goose Egg or Stevens and Lake
Oh,
and
that,
everything.
okay.
Right, and that's pretty.
Alright, thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, going on board comment, I will at least touch on some of the things that I learned over the weekend, other than Happy 4th of July, everyone Happy Independence Day. You know, I found out about this quite a while ago, so I verified and looked it up. Back in December of 2018, the city of Traverse City had a raffle, it had 78 people, or businesses, put in a business proposal to get a provisioning center. And they were giving away 13 of these licenses on Front Street, right downtown Traverse City. So that, I found that really surprising, that they did that. So they did a raffle and 13 of them were pulled. Now, ironically enough, I'm getting spam emails every other day about, a provisioning center that some of the prices are undisclosed, some of our $5.5 million. I think it's called the Sativa Group, anybody wants to look into it, then they're selling them like crazy up there. I thought that was, so I gave you that information here. They did that back in December. I also gave you some information through, the state of Michigan with respect to the regulation and taxation of the Marijuana Act. These have all been changed recently. I have not read them. I know they came out, it's either Wednesday or Thursday. I have not read the changes for recreation yet. I did print some articles out, but I haven't anything concrete as to what those are. In your packet, I know everyone had a chance to read it. I got to see it early enough last week. But in there was an example of the city of Muskegon, their zoning ordinance. I would like to make sure that our planning commission has a copy of this. They've already opted into the medical marijuana. They have overlay districts already. So I pulled that off of their website so that you can see how theirs was set up. Also the language that, or a couple other items I put in here was, I guess it was true, you don't always necessarily have the truth in media, but it does say that Michigan speeds up the medical marijuana licenses and recreational launch rooms, which did in fact happen. And then the Michigan has rules for selling recreational pot. Here they are. I printed out another article for you. This one of them was in the Free Press, one of them was in MLive, 11 things you need to know about Michigan's new recreational marijuana rules. I have not had a chance to read this article. I printed out this morning. But there is another one from the Free Press, six things you need to know from your state prepares for these licenses. So I guess that's all subject to change as the state and legislation comes up with what rules that we have to operate by. But recreational did pass in Michigan, 57-44, or 43, and that's pretty much what it passed in all four precincts here in Dalton Township. So I guess as this moves forward, we will definitely be keeping an eye on this. My personal opinion, all this ag property out here, they need to start growing hemp. That can be used for biofuels and textiles, and we got a lot of property out here. They're doing it up in, there's a lot of municipalities that have already opted into some of this stuff. They did it wrong. We don't wanna follow their example, we wanna do it the right way. I mean, it's here to stay. It's always been here. So we'll keep a close eye on this and make sure that everyone stays informed as we move forward. We did get some correspondence. If the board recalls, we passed a resolution to help the city of Escanaba with respect to the dark store assessing issue, and they sent us a thank you card for our generous support of the dark store issue. Together we can prevail. So I want to make sure that everybody had a chance to hear that. I was handed this tonight from Trustee Heiner. It is respect to the Muskegon County Senior Millage. There's plenty up here if anybody wants any. But you can go to their website and find out what services, since the senior millage was passed, that you may or may not be qualified to get. So they have been at our fire department every single Monday for quite a while. There's like maybe 2 or 3 residents showed up. So now they're doing it at the Twin Lake Library, the Dalton Township Branch Library, Twin Lake, and they do that on Mondays as well. So there'll be a representative. And they'll help with all kinds of things, whether you need help with Social Security or Medical Leave Act. There's all kinds of stuff that they can help you with. So make sure if you have any questions, go over to the Dalton Township Library branch in Twin Lake on Monday, and you'll be able to see the senior resource rep that's over there. I'd like to touch base on a couple of things. First being that I know that at our annual meeting we talked and we budgeted the most money that this township has ever budgeted with respect to doing a lot of gravel road upgrades. That's not gonna happen. I know I brought it up at that annual meeting that ideally we'd like to do gravel road upgrades. We've been very proactive in this township in the last 2 summers, and a lot longer than that. But in the last 2 summers, we've had a really aggressive budget to take care of the roads in this township, and partnering with the road commission since their participation rate is at 50-50 now. So I apologize for this thing cutting out. I'm not sure why it's doing that.
It's only cutting out to you, it's not.
Is it? Thanks. So this construction season, right? Everyone's experienced the rain. It rained nonstop. When it rains for a day, it doesn't put the schedule back a day. for that day. It pushed the entire schedule back. Our county commissioner, Ken Mahoney, is also on the Muskegon County Road Commission Committee, and he attends the meetings. I go every month, but they're not able to do, the gravel road upgrades that we looked at. The only roads that we recommended, to get a price on were, through roads, or that benefit the majority traveling public first, doing the gravel road upgrades. In a perfect world, where no trees have to remove or be cut down, no stumps have to be pulled up, and there's no ditching that needs to be done, it's $100,000 per mile. They do not have the time to do that this year. With respect to cutting those trees, we only have, 2 contracts that we passed here with the road commission. One of them was Putnam Road, roughly from McMillan to Bard, doing a gravel upgrade there. It's gonna need some spotty, ditching out there, but very minimal, compared to other roads in this township. The road commission resurfaced on the other side of 120 Riley Thompson to Dawson because of a culvert repair they had to do. And we passed that contract to do the chip seal, box seal over. That gives you like a 10 to 15 year extended life on that road. So that chip seal, box seal has to be done, and it's been approved at this board. I don't have any other contracts to bring to the board right now. There was an incident, and it was very unfortunate, but the weather was one of them, pushing the schedule back as far as it did. They can't get to these, or they're very labor intensive. So they also had an unfortunate circumstance where the supervisor, the head supervisor for all the garages, Eric Scott, and his daughter were walking their dog, and they got hit by a country farm truck. I think is what the name was, some farm truck I should say, and both of them lost their lives. So trying to fill the shoes is not just one person. They have 3 or 4 people trying to do that. So that's pushing the road commission behind as well. The weather, like I said, did not help, but they're not able to do all these roads, the dirt road gravel upgrades. Now, I did give you a copy of an email that was sent, given to me by Ken Halka, who is the director of the road commission. He's got a lot of roads on here that they're gonna get us prices on. I don't have them right now, but because the road commission is not a construction company, they do road maintenance and preservation. They subcontract out 98% of the work. When it comes to the gravel road upgrades, they do that themselves. And they can do that later in the season, but they don't have the manpower to. They basically said that they would do maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles a year for us in these gravel road upgrades. So they gave us a list. They're on our roads a lot more than we are. So already they're doing an upgrade on M120 from the causeway to the county line up in Skeels Road, I think it's called, up by Sandy's Harley Davidson up there. So they're redoing M120 the whole way. I've heard everybody ask about left turn lanes and stoplights. That's MDOT, not the road commission. MDOT is not putting a light turn lane. I have tried and tried and tried. Maybe if we had everybody in this room call, it would help, but they are not putting a turn lane or a left turn lane until I wanted a left turn lane. It just needed to make sense all the way down M120 from the causeway, at least to the county line bridge, or it'd be great, I think, but anyhow, so here's some of the other roads. They did Blue Lake Road, that was the road commission. That is a county primary road. We didn't pay anything on that. The county took care of under Act 51 money. But the roads, they see them, we see them. But they're talking about east, west, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, O'Neill, Adams. There's a bunch of them in Twin Lake on both sides in 120. They gave us some other ones to at least consider. Ross Road between Tyler and Whitehall Road, McMillan between Hyde Park and Whitehall Road, that's 4,300 feet long. Oak Pine Lane between River and Whitehall Road, Automobile Road between Bard and Tyler, Automobile Road between Bard and Riley Thompson, and Bard between Pillen and M120, 4,100 feet. So we don't know exactly which ones this board's going to approve. We don't have the prices yet. I don't have anything to recommend to the board just yet, but we are the last township, because we were anticipating doing gravel road upgrades. We were back here because just kind of waiting in the wings, waiting for them to get to us, and then the weather kicked our butt, and there was an unfortunate death there. So now, because of the subcontractors, they can do the resurfacing. This also comes with wedge and overlay, chip seal, block seal, that just, they got an assembly line. They can fit some of these roads in. So with that, look forward to, as these contracts or recommended prices, I'll bring them to the board as soon as possible. One other thing that I wanted to touch on, and that is, there's actually two. The first one is, our truck route, 2016-03, I think it is. That was the original one, and then it got changed with the definition to any trucks more than 5 axles. I think the word more was wrong, in the wrong spot compared to where signs were. We're in receipt of some communication from the Village of Lakewood Club. They went from their attorney to the road commission wanting them to mediate why Dalton Township diverted traffic through the village. I went to the village meeting last week, Monday. We did not do that. We've already mediated this at the village with our county commissioner, Lorraine, myself, Paul Bauman from the road commission, the president and the clerk, and the road supervisor in the village, and their attorney, and found out that we didn't divert the traffic through the village, nor could we have that power. We have never had a say on what the truck routes were, or where they're limited to. That's MDOT and the road commission, not a township issue. We thought we got to the bottom of it. Apparently, the village is still thinking that because we changed the definition and we actually followed through and put the signs up marking where the truck route is, that's what diverted the traffic through there. I'm in receipt of an email and a letter, I should say, that the road commission did send to their attorney and to the village, that September 14th, for 1998, there's road supervisors, the same person, he sent the letter over to the road commission requesting that it be a truck route, asking the road commission to help them. So it wasn't Dalton Township, it was the village requesting that. Like I said, we don't have a say in that. Now, with respect to the truck route, we've got a lot of gravel companies, we've got a lot of landscape companies. With that truck route ordinance, at one time, back prior to 2016, I think you could drive on pretty much any road around here. I don't understand how that is necessarily true. The truck route ordinance, it defines what the truck route is, which we had no say on. But what it allows these businesses to do is get a permit to not be on the truck route. So that if they get pulled over and they have that permit, they don't get a ticket for not being in the truck route. We don't have a truck route with respect to weight. We don't have anything to weigh them, neither does the sheriff, that's who enforces this. The weighmaster does enforce it, but they're in Rockford and they're not always over here. There's only 2 of them in this west side of the state. But we wanna take a look at what we're actually doing with this truck route. I mean, I understand it more so as to give the truckers a way to have a permit and we give them a route most directly to their job site. And I mean, because if we, without that, if they're not on that truck route, there's a potential, and maybe there's not, for them to get a ticket. With our ordinance, there would, because over 5 axles in your permit, with their weight, I'm assuming 11 axles, they're probably well within their limits. So that's something that I said that I'd bring to this board tonight. I have not had time to research this enough to effectively bring it to the board with a recommendation, but we will definitely work on that for the next meeting. One other one that we were asked to look at was, this is an old one, it's ordinance 164. How I remember some of these things, I have no idea, but that one's real easy. Ordinance 164 is a no parking ordinance, and it's no parking pretty much where on North Lake, where Lake Street dead ends to the lake, it's not a boat launch. It's just where the road ends into the lake, everybody uses a boat launch. Middle Lake on Fowler Road, same thing, and West Lake off of Lake Avenue or Park Avenue, I'm not sure where that changes, but there's no parking there. And that, in the ordinance 164 that was passed years and years and years ago, you can't park between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. I think is the numbers, the time on it. But we've gotten requests from residents that at least on North Lake with respect to Lake Avenue, that there's no parking at all, which is similar to Lake Avenue on West Lake and Fowler on Middle Lake. The problem with that is most people on West Lake and Middle Lake have a road that they can park on. whether it's Middle Lake Road or Duff Road, you're not talking very many people use these launchers unless, you know, the general public. Most of the residents put them in the springtime, they'll put their boat in, they'll take them out in the fall. But for people that wanna come and use it for the day, that's where they have to park, and that's what they're requesting on Lake Avenue. I don't know where they park. If you see Duff Road over there, there's just not a whole lot of parking over there.
They park on Duff Road.
Yeah, they very well may. Right
Yeah.
now, what you're seeing with all these launches is, and I shouldn't call them launches, I don't even know who owns these things. I guess that's debatable, whether it's a township property, whether it's private property, whether it's an easement, the road commission don't own it, but what you're seeing is people's lawns, they're kind of growing and growing, and the roads are getting narrower and narrower. People can park in that between 8 AM and 10 PM, and they're blocking people in, that's some of the complaints I've heard. Or they're parking their boat and trailer down there, and they'll pay, say, Norm's Sport Marine up here will put their boat in there, and he'll haul it down there, only to find out he can't back it up because there's so many boats in the way, and they gotta pay for that delivery, whether he launches or not. So, that was a concern, and we will take a look at that again. I have not had time to effectively bring that to the board, and I will this coming, next month, so. Any other board comment? Yes, sir.
I won't talk as long as John.
Sorry.
It's gonna be quick. First of all, anyone that was here at the June meeting, I was not here, I apologize for that, but, it was my daughter's registration day at college. And it was not only an all-day event, it was the evening too, before we got out of there. But, so I missed the June meeting, and, what I wanted to comment on was our, zoning administrator. Our zoning administrator, after listening to the audio and reading the minutes and talking to several board members, there was a lot of talk about her being a process server and serving papers here, there, and whatever. Well, first of all, she never has, nor does she today, work for the court system. That's where the process servers come from. So, I personally feel, I've been involved with the township for 30-some years now, and I think this is the best zoning administrator we've ever had. And I think she's to be commended, and before anybody starts throwing stones on Facebook, emails, whatever, they need to get their facts straight. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'll echo the same sentiments that Lorraine. Listen, when she retired from Muskegon Charter Township, every single municipality wanted her. She told us no initially, so she's here. She does a dang good job for us, and she's not a process server. On that same thought process, I will let everybody know as an update with respect to this Hidden Creek Farm non-issue. They have signed our final stipulated order. Our attorney signed it, and we are waiting on the judge to sign it at this point. They are able to continue doing what they have been doing all along. When it comes to this special event, they do need to have off-street parking. So, they've agreed to that, and we should be all done with them once the judge signs it, so. That's all I have. Does anybody else have something else? With the business of the present meeting being concluded, I declare this board meeting duly closed until our next regular meeting, unless specifically called. Entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:04.
Or
Been moved and supported to adjourn at 7:04. Questions, comments, all in favor, say aye.
From